36-year history. And this movement or network was set up by the late Professor Dr. Uday Parikh, whom you must have heard, and the other legendary Dr. Professor T.V. Rao, who after IMA being the professor there is now a thought leader. These are the two people who made a lot of contribution to the setting up of NHRDN, along with L&T as an organization. Many people probably don't remember, L&T was the first organization in 1984 to set up a HRD department in addition to a personnel and an industrial relations department. And that's how the HRD movement, I think, got a lot of traction. There are multiple chapters across the country. Together, we must be having about 15 to 20,000 members. The Mumbai chapter has about 1,500 to 2,000 members. Our current chairman, national president is Chris Shankar, who is the group CHRO of Infosys. And the current president of Mumbai NHRDN is Vikram Tandon, who's an XLRI senior alumni, who's currently the group CHRO of the Adani Group of companies.
Sir, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. I think Ryan was introduced as being the General Secretary of Mumbai chapter. That is the factual information. I am the Vice President. So we both are colleagues on the committee. Doesn't matter who's the VP, who's the General Secretary. What matters is to create some magic through such events. And I must say that we are very happy because we have taken it as one of our thrust areas to reach out to colleges in Mumbai. And now with this connectivity as a big option, we don't even have to remain only in Mumbai. And we're very happy that your institute, right from the first time I got an invite, it always has some sort of a special imagery. And then when I heard Dr. Shukla talking about your achievements, I think a 26-year-old institution has done something really fantastic. And I deeply respect the platform that you have given to NHRD, and we are a completely not-for-profit organization, and we are always happy that we don't come in only to preach or teach, but we also come here to learn. And by the way, it just happened that Ryan and Shivan have worked together for a while in Mahindra and Mahindra. So sometimes opportunities like this bring old friends together. And we are very happy that Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so for students, particularly, dear students, I'm sure out of the audience today, 145 are listening to us right now. We have special features for students. We have different type of offerings for colleges and institutions. After this event is over, we would share these opportunities with you, and we are happy to take this relationship to a more sustainable level for the faculty and for the students of Alkesh Modi Institute. It will be a privilege. I think at this moment, Aruna ma'am, you want to say something before we dive into the program per se?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Uh, Thank you, sir. I take this opportunity to welcome all the panelists and the participants. And Mr. Vijayan, thank you, Professor Vijayan, for the opportunity to have this event and make this event a reality with NHRDN Mumbai chapter. As you rightly said, NHRDN has got a vast spread all over the country, and with eminent HR professionals as pioneering people, and even the practitioners from the current industry today. So it is a great initiative, and it's a great chance for all of us to interact on this platform. Thank you. I request you to proceed with the panel discussion, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Aruna ma'am. You've been extremely helpful. I know that you are already working only not on offline, it's online plus offline. You told me that you it's like a double shift for you.
Yes, sir, we
You've
all
taken
are.
a lot. Yeah. So we deeply respect and thank you for taking so much of care to put this together. So without losing any more time on the introduction and other, you can say, protocols, let's sort of dive into the subject. That is what the participants want to hear. So, uh, yeah, yeah. There are two reasons why I feel this topic is an interesting topic. First of all, I've never seen a topic of this nature titled this way. And sometimes new thoughts come when terms are rearranged. My second, I'm sort of undecided, but I'm a little bit worried whether the ideas of from home or work from anywhere and the sort of flexibility, it came out of a pandemic where people probably did not have much of a choice. So I believe that today's discussion should not get completely overrun by the COVID imperatives, but probably asking a question whether there is COVID or not, just like the director of the institute says, should we really go back to 100% face-to-face teaching of management students? I think it is an important question because sometimes, as somebody has said, never waste a crisis. And I think the pandemic crisis must have also, you know, is lying around giving us some opportunities to reconfigure the way businesses are done, the way employees are leveraged, the balance between their personal time, and probably the talent pool can be widened. So I was a little bit anxious about this getting too COVID specific. So I've tried to neutralize that by seeing COVID as a disruption. It happened to be a very, very serious disruption. It affected everybody's lives. It did not spare rich people, poor people. It did not spare the US. It did not spare Japan. We have not seen something like this. Probably the world wars were probably the last such tragedy. So that's the hope that I have. And I'm very sure Shivan, Ran, and Sarita are all seasoned experts and you're inside the industry. Some of us in academia, we are more like observing and learning what is happening. So I just thought that we just open up this conversation. There are a few discussion points, but as I commented to my panelists, we will go by what the magic that three of you do together. And if you believe that some questions are more important than the one that is being discussed, I think the panelists will be given that thing. So I'm not going to be necessarily having to complete all the questions, but I think just to, just like batting in the nets before entering the match, I think my role is probably to bowl a few balls to just see whether your strokes are coming in a straight line or Bumrah is getting his Yorkers right. And after that, I'm sure Ryan and Shivan and Sarita can take it to whatever level they want. And we are also keeping 15 minutes at 4:45 for the participants to ask questions. So please keep a little bit of your reserve energy for that also. So as a very opening question or an opening comment, any one of you could, uh, when I talk about flexible working, some people tell me that the IT outsourcing itself was the biggest flexible working, intervention of the not the decade. India became a superpower globally. So really, the question is this flexible working really something very different, or it is different for all industries other than IT? And do you think this sort of a compulsion to work off, WFM or WFH, is it a compulsion or is it a choice now? And all three of you are working in organizations whom I'm sure will be wrestling with these questions either at their global leadership level or at India level. So any one of you, all of you can make a comment. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you,
Right.
Vijayan, and delighted to be part of the discussion. I think you made a very important point at the start, where certainly the pandemic is a key factor to look at right now. It is certainly a black swan event, and it has shaken up the status quo. But the antecedents of this discussion need to go back way beyond, right? To answer the question and the broad topic, there's going to be a big difference, right, in terms of who is able to effectively adopt flexible working arrangements based on who was already working on it long before, right? The others who were pushed into it during the pandemic are really playing catch up, and they will struggle far more to adopt to a new normal. So see, while during this pandemic, everyone has had to get onto Zoom calls and MS Team calls and things like that and start using that. There's a lot of support infrastructure which and culture enabling infrastructure which goes around working. So there are some companies which previously had strong onboarding modules which could be done virtually. Others had strong mentoring efforts. Still others have had initiatives like virtual water coolers, right? Places and platforms for employees to interact informally, right? And that's something that I probably will be speaking on a bit over this, because it really goes back to what is the purpose of the office and what is the essence of human interaction, which spans certain formal mechanisms as well as informal. So, Vijay, my thought would be that the industries and the companies which have already taken significant strides in flexible working in the pre-COVID era will have a leg up. A lot of others will struggle along the way. Let me request my co-panelists to share their thoughts on this.
Thanks, Ryan. Great. Over to Sarita or Shivan. What's your take on Ryan's point of view?
So,
Sarita?
thank you, Vijay. And I'm very, very excited to be here. It's always great to interact with young generation, with the students. There's so much to learn from them and their perspective. Right? And I'm just reminded of, when we were just looking at this hit us all and we were in the office, still not having made up the decision that from tomorrow we should not be coming. And one of the questions asked is, how will we know that employees will be working, right? And, I remember asking a counter question, how do you know they're working now? you you walk around any office and Ryan and Shivan will corroborate this. Not everybody's on their desk all the time, right? So I think that the biggest change I have seen is how do you really define flexible working? That has undergone a change. We every organization has a flexible work from home policy, or they used to have before the pandemic, right? And I think one of the parameters over there was the time had to be adhered to, right? If it was a half day, full day. And the second parameter was that, everybody was aware that HR would be monitoring how many are working from home and when they monitor for the sake of salary at whatever. Yeah. And then you have this work from home, which completely changed the whole definition of flexible working. And I recall colleagues calling up in the initial stages and asking, are we changing the policy? Because many of them, you had to ask permission from managers if you wanted to work from home before the pandemic. So now they wanted to do they have to ask this, till it occurred that the whole organization or the whole world is now going to work from home. So I think the flexible work from home policy went out of the window. Right? It had to take a new shape. It had to take on a new avatar and become a new animal of its own kind. And what happened because of that, I would love to speak a little bit more as we go around this discussion. But I'm very curious to hear what Shivan has to add on over here.
Yeah. He's got the advantage of coming in as number batsman 3, so he understands the pitch conditions, and he'll be like Rishabh Pant, maybe playing some expansive drives. Okay, Shivan, sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
Sure. So I think thanks to NHRDN Bombay, Alkesh, Dinesh, Modi Institute, Professor Vijayan, Smita, Aruna, and the faculty members to have me here. To answer the question and building upon what Sarita and Ryan are saying, my take is that the context in both cases are not comparable, in the sense that earlier when you had flexible working, whether it's a manufacturing or services, I would say that it used to come with a rider. So for example, either it will be for certain segments like, let's say, working mothers, or it will be once in a day, in a week, subject to manager's approval. What pandemic has given us that it has been a en masse migration to remote working, right? So now it comes by default. So what used to come by a setting earlier, subject to manager approval, now everybody has to work from home by default. More than the industry, so you are right. So Ryan said that there are certain industries which by default had migrated to it earlier. I think what has happened is, more than the industry, it is about the role, and to be specific, the task and the activity. So what is the nature of the role? Uh, to what extent physical or virtual supervision is required? To what extent the person is available for remote working hours? Whether it's, certain days in a week, certain time in a day span, or it is what kind of data security criticality to business is needed. So there are a whole lot of factors which define a role, and now the entire aspect of flexible working is for a role or for the task rather than for an industry. So that would be my take.
Okay, so that's an interesting summation for three of you. What you're saying is flexibility earlier seemed to be a sort of a paternalistic yes or no, and you have to seek those permission. And as Ryan and Sarita rightly said, HR, somebody is monitoring. And now you're saying it's actually turned upside down, and people are asking, do you really need to come to an office to do a particular role? So Shivan, you're saying that the role is going to be more important than flexibility definition at an industry level, or or a type of, whether it's in manufacturing or so. So I think that's an important point. We'll try and pick it up as we go along. So back to three of you. Any one of you can start. And uh, I think it seems to be. I sort of know the answer to this question, but still, I do. I want to imagine I do not know the answer. According to your opinion, what do you think has been the role of disruptive technologies like internet penetration, broadband, Wi-Fi, smartphones, and other connecting devices in enabling that a pandemic-led default choice? Because my next question after that is to ask all your three gurus, does the management of your companies feel that productivity remained the same, went down, or went up? So I'm a little bit, I hear mixed voices on both these questions. So I'd just like to any one of you to start, and you can combine it the way you like. Look at the technological maybe shifts that happened, the fourth industrial revolution. And then please also look at, uh, okay, I thought I've lost that, but just have a look, bring in the technology aspect. Did it make a default choice somewhat more attractive? And what is going to be the future of more disruptive technologies coming into the workplace?
Uh, Professor, I can take that to start with.
Sure.
I think in the starting of pandemic, what we realized, and this is on a lighter note, that Maslow's hierarchy of needs got changed. So from roti, kapda, and makan, it also entered Wi-Fi. So having an internet connection is the basic necessity for all of us. So on a serious note, there are three aspects to it. One is, and the way we are looking from an HR perspective, there are three aspects. One is having the right infrastructure in place, whether it's providing laptops or networking equipment, virtual logins for your R&D folks, or is it Industry 4.0 where you have the entire shop floor having a digital twin? So one is the hardware. The second would be the policies. So whether it's connectivity policies, policies for bringing your own device, data protection policies, IPR guidelines, preventing any leakage of any company sensitive information. So that is the second part. And third part, what we also realized is the entire sensitization around online. So whether you are an employee or manager or leader, how do you best use this entire forum? For example, how do you conduct performance conversations? How do you conduct leadership town halls, especially in a format? So now there's a whole bit of unlearning and learning in that space, and that is something which we are now working upon.
Okay, Ryan and Sarita.
So, Vijay, yes, like you
Ryan?
said,
Yeah.
the the answer is obvious that the movement in technology availability, right, over the last 3 or 4 years enabled this. So that is a no-brainer. I think I'll answer the second question that you shared.
Yeah.
That has it been successful? I'd say
Yeah.
that I've seen surveys, and by and large, then in the network of people that I'm in touch with, yes, it has been a resounding success, is what we would say. Right? Most
Okay.
leaders believe that. I think the productivity and effectiveness of the workforce who could possibly work at home. We'll keep out the people who necessarily have to be on site because
Absolutely.
of the nature of their job.
Right.
Uh, it has been a resounding success beyond anyone's expectation.
Okay.
I will, however, say that the jury is little still out on whether that this level of flexibility can be sustained in the long run. I'll just point out or say a couple of things of top of mind.
Sure.
For instance, everybody who has currently just gone on to work from home last March or so pretty much knew each other already. They already
Yeah.
had relationships which were established in the office. Right now, they were carrying that into an offline mode.
Okay.
Whereas going forward, as churn continues and new employees come in who've not had the opportunity to actually build those relationships, what will happen to productivity then? Right?
Okay.
And which is why, again, I mentioned that companies which were already planning for this and were
Hmm.
already building the social infrastructure and environment to ensure that relationships get developed are better positioned. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So let
Okay.
me pause on that thought and
Okay.
hand over to Sarita.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. It never crossed my mind. You're saying that when you work together in a offline mode, there is an inbuilt level of trust, understanding, give and take, and now it's like the team is entirely new, and you are supposed to play a game that is a team game, and therefore the jury is not out as to what would happen when these churns happen. And I think we'll probably park it there and listen to others picking it up. Ryan, thank you so much. And Sarita, would you like to
Yeah,
add your
yeah. So
yeah,
I
your
don't
views?
dispute what Ryan is saying, that maybe the productivity levels have increased, but I want to really talk about what else has come in a very big way are the issues of mental well-being,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
And I don't think there is any argument over here to say no, it didn't happen. It is.
Okay.
I have personally seen people who are introverts by nature, moving on to the line of depression and
Okay.
anxiety because suddenly they are cut off from everything. They may not talk much, but at least going to office and interacting was their lifeline.
Okay.
Right. On
Okay.
the other hand, I've seen gregarious people whose lifeline again was networking, now
Okay.
suddenly being isolated. Yeah, we
Okay.
have witnessed colleagues are now bound in their homes or in their places and not able to interact with people. Right. And I'll also take the case of new joinees who are scrambling to figure out their way remotely, virtually, and not knowing what is working, what is the culture. How do you sniff the
Hmm.
culture? The
Hmm.
fragrance of a culture is when you are there within
Correct.
the organization. How do you get it online?
Right.
All of these issues are creating a lot of havoc in the minds of many
Okay.
people.
Mm-hmm.
That has a direct implication on productivity, right? So while on one hand you may say productivity has increased because you can put in more hours, you can be a little flexible on your timings. We understand you have a pet at home, you have kids crying, you have senior citizens who need your attention, or you are now all in one. Your domestic helps are not there with you, so you're doing multiple chores together. All of that is fine, but also having an assault on your mental well-being, which you have to struggle, because now even counseling is online. You also meet the psychiatrist
Yeah.
online. So
Yeah.
the face-to-face whole interaction has been kind of snapped away, and it snapped away suddenly.
Suddenly.
There
Okay.
wasn't a weaning, right? You weren't told that in the next 15 days, slowly by
Right.
slowly, things will go, offline, and you will now no longer have. It was like tomorrow, from tomorrow onwards, that's it. And you suddenly had to struggle. And I think all of us over here, including your students, I have gone through
Mm.
this
Mm.
journey, and it's a
Mm.
year. Next month we
Mm.
complete a year of
That's right.
working. It's not a small time frame.
Mm. Mm.
And there are studies which say I want to bring in an interesting one, because Shivin spoke about IP issues, data
Mm.
protection issues. Or I also want to highlight something that we have been witnessing, and it may not be the right thing, but I do want to share this with students. Are the different kind of cases of sexual harassment that have come up on online?
Online. Online.
Yeah, appropriate dressing,
Mm.
right? And many people took it for granted, just because you're sitting at home you could be dressed whatsoever, and
That's right.
not take care
That's
of the sensitivities that were attached to the other person on the other side of the
right.
screen.
Mm.
We have to relook at posh policies internally, and both Shivan and Ryan can corroborate on that one as well, because these were new dimensions that really, really came up. So no disputing the revolutioner of Wi-Fi, no disputing productivity, but I think we can't close our eyes to the new challenges that really, really came up due to this whole pandemic, and the way it changed the dynamics of work life.
Yeah. I think, sorry, I mean, I obviously work in an environment where there are more students and faculty. I think the point what you said along with the others also, uh, the earlier work from home, as Ryan and all others said, there was an element of a choice whether I wanted it or not. And as you said, it was, your family stage in life, etc. But here it's like a one was, you've been sent away with no return ticket. So Ram struggled for 14 years, but I think this 1 year is equivalent to 14 years. So I think when the choice goes away, then you feel that you are imprisoned. And I think, Sarita, we all know, forget about post pandemic. In our country, the respect, not respect, the way we look at mental health issues,
Yeah.
even among students and faculty and all that, it is still, I'm not saying it's a taboo, but it is very, very marginal. And only when breakdown is happening, somebody's intervening. So really, I have not seen some of my senior HR students at all for 1 year. And I shudder to think what will they be looking like when I meet them maybe after 2 months. So I think what you're saying, a sense of helplessness, and an introvert can very quickly go down the spiral, as you say. And the gregarious person is he's tied down, and he has to create virtual coffee parties and virtual alcohol parties. Is not a so I think this is what you're saying is the celebration and productivity also has to be seen at some human cost. And I think that's why Ryan also rightly said that the jury is not out. What is the use of getting the bucks in if mentally people are becoming more unwell? And I think this is a very good, Sarita, you have introduced this concept, because I keep struggling in college to bring out this. Our ratio of counselors to students, I believe, is insufficient. But there's always a little bit of academia. They feel, how to engage with parents. वो तो it will get into कोई और loop में जाएगा. But some students may be really just getting out of their control. And the parents are also not able to do anything. So I think I would.
You're
Yeah.
right, Jen. I will also add on, the whole dimension of space in the house.
Yeah.
How that has mentally impacted colleagues who are working from home. Not
Yeah.
everybody is privileged or has the luxury of a room to himself or herself with a separate Wi-Fi connection.
Absolutely.
Right now, you have children using that broadband. You have
Yeah.
maybe your parent or your partner using that broadband at the same time,
Yeah.
and you may
Yeah.
just be living in Mumbai in a small cubby hole and everybody trying to struggle.
Hmm.
Uh, and, let me just share personally, my son and I moved out separately because we
Oh
couldn't
my.
cope,
Okay.
with all the loud noises, the meetings that we were doing at the
Correct.
same
Correct.
time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Though we had our rooms, but it was just becoming too much. And then we took a
Hmm.
call, let's
Hmm.
stay independent, next building, next floor, next house,
Oh.
but
Oh my.
let's be
Okay.
together, but be far and yet manage work from home. That was what really the implication that happened to it. It turned out to be for the good, but I'm saying
Hmm. Hmm.
this was a direct fallout of being cooped up together
Yeah.
24 by 7 in the same house.
Yeah. I think this is taking familiarity breeds to contempt to a very serious level. That you don't want to see your parents and sisters and brothers and father or spouse every minute of the day.
Yeah.
But I think I can share in our building there is a plumber and his family. They live on one of the, let's say, whatever, someplace, and he's the electrical guy. And he has a mobile. The schools have moved into mobile-based teaching. And what happened was, if he has to give the mobile to his daughter to connect to classes, customers in our building cannot contact the plumber. Now, you can't say everybody should get their own device and things. And he's living at below the ground level where the connectivity must be zilch. So we have seen that happening, and then we are thinking of, should we give the daughter some sort of a lower order mobile so that at least both of them can achieve what they are supposed to do. I've seen this happening, and the students in, I think, in the in colleges, they're a little more mature possibly, but school children as young as third standard and fourth standard being taught on an online mode has also put a lot of pressure. As you say, coming from in Mumbai, all of us, I think we spend our entire life cycle moving from 1 BHK to 3 BHK. But the question is, the 3 BHK is still a small house only. And, as yet, we don't have a separate room. But we are saying is it can also put a lot of pressure, has put pressure on relationships. And the effect of that might be yet to come, really. So Ryan, I want to pose this to you, and I was reading a CIPD report. They have done some research on the effects of flexi working. I know it's not necessarily relevant country specific, but there was an interesting comment they made, and I want to share that with you and the others. Uh, what they're trying to say is there are certain roles, and I think Shivan rightly mentioned that certain roles are more amenable. So what they're trying to say is jobs like a hairdresser, cutting hair, they will be less amenable to home working. Because even now, the hairdressers might want to come to your house, but the society may not allow you to come in. And then you don't want your hairdresser to get into privacy issues and other matters. So the report is saying that some industries and some occupations which have lower skill and pay are likely to be the last to get flexibility, and they are the ones who are going to be paid the least. So the issues going towards a knowledge society, if more and more roles become knowledge heavy roles seem to be fitting better in 100% or 80% WFA. But what about the plumber? What about the electrician? What about the hairdresser? And I think that's true for a haircut. Finally, I went to a saloon after about 9 months. Till then, we did my son cutting my hair and I looking like a gollywog. Then he goes and cuts the nails of my grandfather. So we've done all that, but no satisfaction, no? So Ryan, I just wanted. I got really worried at this because if the same logic is used in India, then would workers and workforce who are at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of their perceived value and their replaceability, for want of a better word, will they get squeezed out because of aggressive W from FM or W from home activity, right?
Interesting point, Professor Vijayan. In fact, I was just reflecting that while your example was about whether or not the barber can come home, for him that is still going to office. No, he can't cut your hair from his home. Right? So
That's right.
certainly, yeah. So certainly, Professor, there is no doubt about that. There are a number of roles which today require the person to be there physically to carry out that activity. Now, will there be some movement over a period of time? Certainly. I mean, in Japan, they already have some restaurants where the waiter is a robot who comes around with the tray. Of course, I think that's more for novelty value than an actual business model. But it's not too far away where you can see that you will go up to the counter at a quick service restaurant, and there's a robot with a screen, and maybe there is a face on that screen, which is of a cashier who is working from home, and that person is still interacting with you and taking your order and advising you on the order. It's not AI; it's a human being working from home. So that is possible in the near future. But by and large, I would say that there has to be societal change for that, for people to more and more be open to dealing with people in that way. Like, so if I were to take my company and Godrej Properties, and so some of our more junior associates would be working in the site offices, right? Am I at a place right now where where customers who come into that site office to talk about buying a property over there would be open talking to somebody who's on the other side of a screen? Not really right now. Okay, uh, I'm sure that companies will start experimenting with different models, and then that might take us there eventually. But yes, by and large, I agree that we are debating vigorously work from home, etc. There's a huge segment of the population for where that is not an option altogether right now. And from a human benefit point of view, assuming it is a human benefit, they would be left out of it. Yes. Professor, I think you're on mute.
That's right. Yeah. Would you like to have a response to this larger issue, or Ryan sort of verbalized it a little differently?
Yeah, Professor Vijayan. So maybe a slightly contrarian point. What will also happen is there's a lot of scope of innovation to happen. So, for instance, if your delivery boys will not be coming, then your drones will replace them, right? So, in lot many industries. So, just to give an example for manufacturing, if you look at any modern automotive plant, for example, we do have one in Chakan. It is one of the state-of-art manufacturing facilities with huge investments in robotics, mechatronics, right?
Okay.
So there are significant technological investments. So for example, painting. So you now have virtual painting. So you can program the machine to do it in a certain strokes, which erstwhile we used to require a physical person standing and doing. So I think there is a big scope of innovation to come in, and that is what we'll start to see. The other bit is even knowledge workers, which you said would be work from home, but what will also start to happen is there would be a lot of outsourcing as well, automation happening in knowledge workers, which we have been seeing for the last 5 years, but I think it will start getting more accelerated. Again, which probably there's a whole demand on reskilling them, or job losses in terms of service and knowledge industries. So that's a challenge that we'll also have to deal with.
So what I hear from you is it's not necessarily a hairdresser's problem. It is also a professor's problem. Because a professor can, part of his job can be outsourced. Lectures are not compulsory. We don't have to be there. So maybe the role of the professor has to change, or the role of the hairdresser has to change. I think
which
that's an, yeah,
which brings
Shivan?
to my first point, Professor, is that the role may not get outsourced, but the
Hmm.
activity or task within the professor's role might get outsourced, or it
Yeah.
can be redefined.
Okay. Sarita?
Yeah, so if I look
Sarita?
at both the sectors, both the organized and the unorganized, what I have seen definitely seen is an acceleration of being internet savvy,
Okay.
and wanting to catch up and be there, because otherwise
Right.
you lose out, which was
Correct.
not there earlier. Right,
Hmm.
and it was okay, like a lot of people who are senior in age and have retired, they were comfortable not being on the internet. It's okay,
Correct. Correct.
people don't know, a lot of grandmothers don't know how to handle mobile. All of
Correct.
that changed.
Hmm.
So I saw an impact not just in the unorganized sector. Like I read about a study where drivers were the most impacted, because nobody was using their car anyway
Uh-huh.
anymore, right? You were not
Right.
commuting. So
Right.
and drivers are a class different, in terms of the pay scale. They're at a much
Yeah.
higher level than maybe a domestic
Help.
maid. And
Right.
the impact was the hardest to drivers, because do you keep them? And if you keep them, you don't even know for how many months are you going to
Yeah.
keep them on
Yeah.
their payroll. So that got
Yeah.
impacted. On the
Yeah.
other hand, the organized sector learned to adapt,
Hmm.
and pick up the skills very quickly. And if I may just share, I know it's not part of your question, but
That's okay.
if I put my experience, what I saw, and the biggest eye opener we saw, was how the government became savvy online.
Okay.
There was
Okay.
almost the bureaucracy, red tapeism disappeared. Every
Hmm.
decision was taken online, every approval was given online, and they were quick
Okay.
to act. Yeah, so for
Okay.
me, that was I saw that transformation, and I hope the government never goes back to
Hmm.
working
So they're old,
offline. you know.
where some of the signatures or even of the chief minister can be changed. Uh,
Now you're referring to the forgery. But yeah,
somebody.
yeah,
I don't know. I'm not mentioning which state.
yeah, I
Somebody.
know, but
Yeah.
the transformation, it has impacted everybody. But you may be
Hmm.
right, the unorganized
Yeah.
is the biggest
Yeah.
hate. But I will go with Shivan, how creativity got a new birth over
Hmm.
here. If I may add, so how
Hmm.
science has also been given a new birth.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
you know
Very good point.
yeah,
Very good
the
point.
whole advent of science and R&D and the importance. And the
Hmm.
third dimension which I have seen a rebirth is on on compassion.
Okay.
A lot of people have moved out of their comfort zones to help others.
Hmm.
They have displayed tremendous exemplary examples of compassion, that I think everybody rose to the occasion to help.
Yeah.
I have never seen something like this, and you take the whole development of vaccine is the biggest example. Globally, everybody coming together to support to develop a vaccine at the
Correct.
earliest. Yeah, but
Right.
at the ground level, we know how our neighbors have helped everybody, how
Yeah.
communities have helped, every organizations have helped.
Yeah.
Everybody's chipped in and helped people. I think humanity has seen a new dimension
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this whole saga of
Hmm.
people losing their jobs.
So yeah, that's an interesting one. I think the science one is also. I think there was always a fear, Ryan, Shivan, and Sarita, that the entire imagery of jobs and industries seem to be moving. How to move your money around, and leverage funds and hedge funds. Even some people started writing the demise of manufacturing, and there was always probably opinion more important than facts and. Deep knowledge. But I think what you said is science has given a new life to every, you can say, status quo. And science are also asking the question, why not? And I think it's extremely important. And the humanity point we've always seen, particularly in India, definitely, it takes a crisis for us to bring out our best. But I think one must say in Mahindra's, I remember they were the first people, I think, to announce. Mr. Mahindra said that we will start manufacturing. Is it that what is a simulator, Shivan, or a Ventilators?
It is ventilator. It's
Ventilator,
called
yeah.
AIR 100. AIR
Fine. Now
100.
you can say, what has Mahindra got to do with ventilators? But that's the difference of Mahindra, because Mahindra is equivalent to India's growth and its culture, just like Godrej is. And it was such a touching moment that an industrialist moves quickly. Otherwise, a lot of people might have made money on ventilators, and then the cost of medicines and cost of treatment would have been affected. So I take this humanity point that, okay, at least a crisis brings out the best of humanity. I think Sarita is an important point. We missed that. So just we have another 20, 25 minutes, and maybe we can give a little more to the students because they might like to ask their own questions, and their questions may be different from us. So Aruna ma'am, with your permission, I feel we'll go on for another 15 minutes. And instead of 15 minutes for Q&A, we still have 132 people logged in. It will be great if you allow them to ask questions to any of the panelists. Would that be okay with you?
Sir, should we ask them to write their questions in the chat box?
Okay,
So
if you think that would be, yeah, if you think
we can
connectivity and
take those,
efficient,
yes.
not a problem. And we'll see whoever wants to answer it. All of them need not answer. Anyone may answer, but you can enter that in the chat box. We'll start the process after 15 minutes, but you can start it now.
Yes. Yes.
So, Ryan, this is probably more closer to the title of this whole session. Work from anywhere is it a more strategic question, which is connected to strategy, purpose, values, and work from home is still somehow seen as a employee benefit. I'm not saying both are important, but it seems to be, unless you get your WFA right, then only the WF from home, has its legitimate place. But all work from anywhere is not necessarily equal to working from home. Because I remember that TCS, not as part of pandemic, when their female employees are in their family way, what I've been told is, as long as they can keep continuing to work, and when they come back to work, they don't have to come to the same office they used to go before. They have to get hooked on to maybe a smaller office, which is available closer to their homes. So I see this as first a business question, and saying, is the service going to be affected? No, maybe it's an individual contributor, the client is in USA. And at the same time, we all know in India that a lot of women, they drop out of the workforce, especially when they're in their family way. So Ryan, I think if you could lead this conversation, like, are you finding that W from anywhere is becoming a strategic question and not a pandemic response?
Thanks, Professor Vijayan. I think it comes down to what is the purpose of an office, right? And how does it play a role as in answering the question? And this is really the primary question, right? How do we generate additional value in our business? Okay. Right. Finally, all questions really come down to that. Even the ones which go the route of how do we enable employees? Right. It is how do we enable us to get the right employees working in the right way to add value to business. Right?
Correct.
I'd say that the social aspects of coming together in an office, right, is something that at least as a general species right across, we are not really in a place where we can leave it aside, I mean, even if you circle back 10,000 years to when people were hunter-gatherers in the cave, right? There would have been certain formal meetings probably to elect the chief or to decide where the hunting ground is going to be for the next season. Yeah. But a lot of the actual work was going to happen even at that time, and anthropology does show us this. in small group conversations, right? Which says that no, don't trust that guy. He told lies to so and so about me, or he took more of the kill, right? And no, I think we should not go to that particular hunting ground because it will benefit the guys who run faster and not us who are stronger. These informal conversations which happened over there. Now, what is the value of those informal conversations even in office? I think all of us who have been in the workplace for quite a long time, right, understand that, besides the very formal meetings, which possibly you can still do online, there used to be a lot of informal interactions, right, where people would thrash things out. In fact, one of the amusing things which just comes to my mind is, sometimes in talent discussions, right, where two senior executives are at it and they vigorously disagree about, say, a certain promotion or something like that, they'll end the matter by saying, okay, let's discuss it offline. And sometimes I felt like saying that, okay, chalo, it's only me and another couple of HR people. We'll go. It becomes offline, no? But what they really meant was that, okay, we'll go out of a formal scenario where we let our guard down. We talk as human beings with each other, right? And hear what are our concerns and try and resolve that, and we try and reach a decision. Now, we are not yet in a place where we can completely drop that. And what is the value of that to the organization is a key factor in answering your question. I would further offer one more tidbit before I return the mic. A lot of senior executives, that the leader of Wipro and many others, right, have been people from other countries who continue to primarily reside in other countries. Right. In Wipro's case, in US, closer to their clients. They still would take that trip down. Right. I know another, and at fairly regular intervals, I know of another India CEO of a multinational business who every quarter used to make the trip to New York just for the quarterly strategy planning meeting and then come back. Now, obviously, he could have joined it online, right? But the very fact of interactions outside the conference room, and even within the conference room, seeing how people are responding, seeing the body language, just the whole aspect of physical presence, which human beings have got used to for thousands of years. Are we in a place to completely drop that? I think these are the questions which companies are really asking themselves when they talk about work from anywhere, right? And thereafter thinking about work from home. I think actually, if you will allow me one further point, right?
Do go ahead.
Shivan mentioned different roles are more amenable, very true. I would also say different seniority levels, right? Because, and I read this somewhere, it's not my invention, but it made sense to me. We could well see an hourglass sort of reaction in terms of where it makes sense for people to be in office and be at home. So people at the bottom rung, where they are just coming into the workforce, like all of my friends in this chat today, where your skills are not yet developed. You have not built the algorithms in your mind, right, which help you to solve the business problems that come. Maybe the office is the right place, for some period of time, maybe not now 5 and 6 days a week, but certainly, not completely out, so that one can interact with other people, can take guidance, and can build those algorithms. As we move up where to people with 5 years, 8 years, 10 years experience, now some algorithms are developed. It's a little more feasible to now work from home. You can sit and do your own work, and you can interact with other people there. And then going still further up, where it is now, and most leaders will tell you that their work is primarily done in meetings, right? And it is interacting with people, and it is sharing their strategic perspective and wisdom. Again, where the leaders that I talk to, there seems to be a preference to do that in office, where they can meet people one-on-one. So these are a couple of perspectives I'd like to put on the table.
Yeah. So Ryan has added that the seniority of people is also sort of a secret sauce to prepare the secret sauce. But I think he also made a larger point as to what does work mean to people. And I think we've learned in sociology, there is a collectivism, there is a camaraderie, and I think to cut it out from an Eastern society like India, I think might have so much of ramifications, as some of you said, on the logical side and the cognitive type of performance. You can't say that work is only to score the goals, but work is also the fun we had in losing a match, the fun we had in winning the match, as you rightly said. So I think that is a cautionary statement that scoring goals is not the be all and end all of at least human beings' life, is probably what I'm trying to take out from Brian. Shivan, Sarita, comments or thoughts or
Uh,
anything contrarian?
yeah. So if you look at the entire strategic implication for work from home, I would say that if you can take a step much higher, uh, for organization, the key question is which capabilities or competencies, whether you need to have in-house or you want to keep it out.
Okay.
So what will now happen is the entire definition of what is core to you and what is non-core will start getting redefined.
Great.
There's another aspect of entire gig economy and gig workforce.
Oh.
So why is it that certain roles need to be core and cannot be, for example, given as a work outsourcing, or you
Right.
have gig experts? So, for
Right.
example, if you need an R&D expert for a certain infotainment area in the
Mm.
vehicle, so
Mm.
you have gig experts available.
Right.
Same is you have a lot of non-core activities which you can look at, outsourcing the entire. For
Mhm.
the roles which would remain core, I would say that work from home may be positioned as what we call the total reward strategy. So this would be
Okay.
part, but
Mm.
going forward, I see that it will become a hygiene. So it,
Okay.
and as Ryan said, it will be a hybrid workforce. 2 days to 3 days, you will be going to office. Remaining times, you will be at homes and working.
Mm-hmm.
The other aspect is there are certain aspects, for example, even for core roles, right? So leadership roles. Uh, let's say we had to have a facilitation workshop for the top 10 leaders on certain cultural aspects that we were building.
Mm-hmm.
So we waited for some time till we met them physically yesterday. So we had a
Okay.
physical workshop in one of the locations.
Okay.
The
Okay.
reason we had to do is because while uh, you know virtual setting would have been feasible from a technology point of view, but as Ryan said, those social norms, those brainstorming,
Mm.
getting that discussions where leaders set the pace, the others kind of give their
Correct.
opinions, that needed a
Correct.
physical setting.
Okay.
So again, so core versus non-core, and for core it will be part of your total reward strategy. And third is uh, work having meaning. It will have more meaning for areas like facilitation, group behavior, where you
Okay.
need a physical setting.
Yeah.
Those three points.
Thank you, Shivan. Sarita, before we sort of move to the Q&A, I've already started getting some interesting questions. Sarita, your point of view?
Yeah, I would say what we are moving towards is more of a hybrid model, where you will be given the choice. It's not, those days are gone where you will be told mandatorily you have to be in office
Mm.
every day of the week. Those
Okay.
are definitely gone,
Mm.
right? Will be maybe there are an HR would also everywhere HR is working. Can we look at twice a day or thrice a day and give
Mm.
that flexibility,
Okay.
to people to choose and work with their managers and choose.
Mm.
And what I'm also seeing, Vijayan and everybody, is a
Mm-hmm.
whole change in the architecture of the office,
Okay.
right? We're
A
looking
little more
at,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, we're looking at something called as hot seat management. That means nobody will any longer have a designated desk and a chair, right?
Okay.
You will
Mm.
be shown online, these are the spaces available for today, which are
Mm.
free. Kindly book your slot a day before, and you have to go there, work, and then go back, and when you come again you'll be given a different place. So the
Mm.
optimization of space,
Mm.
which was long in the cards, is now
Mm.
happening, Right, so there's a direct hit on property, on people. Those organizations which never owned their own offices are willing to give off the land and give off the property, right? Those who have their own offices are looking at restructuring that, especially now when you have to maintain distances.
Yeah,
Right?
correct.
Earlier, you didn't have to maintain a distance. You
Yeah,
could have two
correct.
cabins or two people sitting in the cubicle
Sitting
next
in the
to each
same.
other.
Yeah.
Now you have to give, one space, keep one space empty, which means you want less people in the office. You cannot have the same workforce and maintain physical distancing.
Okay.
Right, so that whole
Yeah.
architecture of allowing, like my office has opened staggeredly since the first, and in the meeting
Okay.
rooms also they're saying
Ah,
you have to wear your mask everywhere.
mask.
You have to wear your mask
Right.
except when you're having your lunch or refreshment,
Lunch.
whatever.
Okay.
Honestly,
Okay.
Vijayan, I would rather work from home. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. So
Right.
and go
Yeah.
maybe once a day, because these are,
Once a day.
when you're with people, you want to remove your mask, you want to see body language. This is what you're missing, right? You want to
Yeah.
hug your friends, you want to hold,
And, you know.
shake hands, say hello, and you can't do any of those things. There are
Yeah.
big challenges that HR is grappling with, and we
Right.
have a system where we have a community formed with, employees part of it, across the hierarchical structure, to
Mm,
brainstorm and see what best ideas.
mm, mm.
This can't be worked by HR alone. It
That's
has
right.
to have a consensus of a lot of employees across leadership, across newbies, across mid-level, to get their perspectives and put their
Yeah.
point of view. And uh,
Okay.
the other thing you no longer can disregard is the need for resilience to withstand to
Absolutely.
all of these changes that come your way. How do you
Mm,
really withstand them and get acclimatized to them?
mm, mm.
So that's how I
Yeah, I
see
think,
these changes happen.
yeah. So I think resilience is a nice place for us to slightly take a pause and look at some of the questions. Some of the questions might have been answered, but since they are students, probably they would like a more granular answer, maybe. So I'm going to start with the first question, which came. It was quite interesting. Yeah, just give me a minute. Yeah. Good evening, so and so. This is from Prateek. As we'll be joining as management trainees, does work from home be as beneficial as it was working in office, as it is an earning phase for us from other seniors? We would like your take on this. Thank you. I think Ryan had possibly mentioned that as trainees, it becomes more challenging because you have not built the social relationships, the smell of the place, as Sarita rightly said, how to get work done in an organization. So I think the expert opinion was that maybe trainees should be socialized more physically, and then at a certain point of time, that relationship can be used as a emotional bank account to be productive, even in so I'm not going to put this question back to Prateek. I hope, Prateek, you're happy with the answer. So let's take some other questions which did not come. Uh, yeah, yeah. Is compliant. Okay. Yeah, I think somebody's got connected with this question. Umair Khan is asking, what is HR's challenges for introverted employees? And there was a comment on that, but maybe that was commented by Ryan or Shivan, I do not know. But would you like to say that what probably are the specific challenges of working away from teams for people who have an introvertish personality? Sarita and Shivan?
I look forward to Ryan explaining from an HR perspective.
Okay, so Ryan is, I can't see his photograph, but I'm sure he's online.
Yes.
Or Ryan, over to you, because you
Yeah.
had that.
Well, no, I'll avoid any sort of theoretical answer. I'll simply make it more practical.
Sure, sure.
Right. So people who are introverts, right? In a simple way, they generate the maximum of their energy from themselves and from their work, right? Whereas extroverts will generate their energy from other people around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, while they might generate that energy from their work, so that way they are actually a little bit more comfortable during a work from home than the average extrovert would be. The flip side is in meetings, right? Especially in this scenario, like if you see, I'm looking at my screen and there are some 6 7 photos on, primarily the panelists. Everyone else is off. Yeah.
Is off. Yeah.
Right now, at the in the virtual setup and virtual meetings, an extrovert will tend to find a way to put his point forward, right? Introverts usually tend to need to be called upon a little more and included in the conversation. I think this is certainly one of the challenges that we are seeing, where possibly the manager's perceptions of folks who are introverted and their ability to add value certainly seems like a challenge. Now, this being the challenge, what is the solutions to this? We don't have any very simple ones. We certainly are encouraging managers to ensure that when they are having discussions, they do round robins. We are encouraging people, though it might not always be the most convenient, and to try and keep your video on. Right? We've emphasized that we really don't mind if there's clothes hanging in the background, if your kid runs up and down. We have said very openly that we realize we are in their space, they are not in our space. So it's very comfortable, whatever happens in the background. But you keep your video on so that your manager can see what you're thinking, and when you might want to say something and might call on you. Right. So these are at very basic levels some of the things which we are doing. I think we will certainly need to have deeper solutions going forward. Of course, the very critical point which Sarita mentioned earlier about depression, right? And I don't think it's necessarily an introvert versus extrovert problem. I think it is that when you get under pressure, right? Is there somebody who can see it and can help? Right, and that could hit an introvert as well as an extrovert. And this is the thing which we are seeing. One at risk of continuing too long, I think one of the key things which we must realize over the last 1 year, and for those of us who've not been in the corporate world, has been the predominance of crisis mindset, right? Okay. This has not been an easy year. It is not just a matter of working from home. It is a matter of corporate bottom lines being under very severe pressure. It is a time of salary cuts, job cuts. Not in all companies. The good companies which are represented here have managed to hold the line because of their strong balance sheet and their values, but a lot of others have, right? Now, in this scenario, people have stretched to the maximum extent. People are working as many hours as are required online, right? Somewhere something's got to give. Yeah. And I would say that yes, introverts, but broadly everyone will need some care and will need more than ever HR to be reaching out, whether through surveys where they get a sense, and then perhaps through individual conversations to understand when people are in pressure and get the help that they need. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much. I think yes, the same gentleman had asked what is the full form of WFM and WFH. WFH is work from home. I thought you already know that. Okay, let me see. How does it interest the minorities? Okay. Kinjal Surti wants a response from Sarita ma'am. Workplace cultures usually cater to the needs of the majority, which in this case favor work from anywhere. How does a leader ensure that in times like these, the interests of the minorities are upheld? I think probably he's not meaning minorities in the caste and community mode. I think he's talking about less expressive people people who don't, who are not so, let's say, outgoing probably. So I think Sarita, you could have a quick answer to this.
I,
This is from
I would
Kinjal
also,
Surti.
yeah, thanks, Kinjal, for asking. But I also want to talk about how leadership had to undergo a change,
Okay.
right? They
Mm.
also had to deal with the fact that now everybody, the whole office was in the house and no
Yeah.
longer, and for not every leader also is accessible. Please understand, right?
Correct.
Leaders are busy people, their calendars get booked, but now they had to be accessible because
Mm. Mm.
employees wanted to know what is
Mm.
happening, right?
Mm.
And if you remember, go back to last March, it was an era of, I would say, there was mayhem where misinformation and rumors were concerned.
Okay. Okay.
Nobody was aware what was happening, what was this virus, what is it going
Mm.
to do. And
Mm.
that's where I think leaders stepped up,
Mm.
right? They stepped up in this to display an extraordinary sense of accessibility,
Mm.
availability,
Mm.
connecting. And I
Mm.
think what we saw was a plethora of platforms that came up which were not there or were not used by the organization. You could take Zoom, you could take Microsoft Teams, or you could even take Facebook Live, where leaders went live and people could join in and ask them questions and get answers. So I think what we saw in leaders to deal with a situation like this and the psychological impact
Mm-hmm.
was their accessibility, their
Mm-hmm.
humanity, and their empathy, most
Mm. Mm.
importantly. Yeah,
Mm.
their
Mm.
empathy, because they also were going through the same procedure.
Sure.
This was no longer a situation where leaders are disconnected with what is happening on the ground. They
Right.
also
Yeah.
were experienced it. So I think the empathy factor came in a very big way
Very big
to
way.
act as a,
That's, yeah. Thank you, Sarita.
leveler,
That was quite
ground player,
quite
and yeah,
quite
create a
prescient. And
living
yeah,
playing ground for
you're saying that
yeah.
it's not the captain alone was not in a non-COVID area. Captain was also in the same game.
Yeah.
I think this question I never expected to come from, I don't know, as a student. I'm quite impressed by the student because I wanted to ask this question, but I thought this is such a, I tell you, क्या सबको पैसा में calculate नहीं करने का. But I think one student has managed to break that mindset. So I want to give respect to that. Where is that lady? I forgot. Yeah, I saw it just now. Just give me a minute. I have to ask this question because that is one question I did not ask any one of you. Okay, this is Jigar Thakkar. I hope she's a student or maybe she's a faculty. Suppose in future work from home becomes a crucial part of a job. Do you feel it will change the components of the salary structure? If then, what allowances can be considered? My question was very different. In Germany, they want to tax people like people like Sarita who work in German companies who work from home because you're saving commuting time. But the counter logic is the company is saving a lot of office space. So I thought this is too hot to handle. But some student has felt that this is the $1 million question, and three of you better help Jigar to have a peaceful night, whether his salary will be reduced in WFM or it will go up. Over to each one of you.
So I can
Jigar,
take
thank you.
that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So if you look at Silicon Valley, there's a debate ranging on. So you have Reddit, which says that they will not reduce the compensation if people move out, and I think it's Facebook, Twitter, and I think Stripes. So a lot of and VMware. So they have said
Mm,
that if a person moves to a locality which is far different away from Silicon Valley, they will reduce the tax or they will reduce the compensation by
salary.
20%. And
Mm,
there's a whole debate going on in Silicon Valley.
mm,
Um, there are a lot of complications as well. So, for example, if somebody chooses to come to India and stay, right,
correct.
and he's a US professional and he stays in India, let's say more than 6 months,
Correct.
so will it attract dual taxation? Because
Yeah.
the person would stay in India and then you have in US taxations as well. So it's a Pandora's box when it comes to compensation. But as I said, two things. One is work from home would start getting part of total rewards strategy. But then I feel that in a medium to long run, it will become a hygiene because
Mm,
most of the companies will start provide, at least for the
mm,
roles whichever it is possible. Second is to the key question whether the compensation would go down. There, I feel that there would be options given for the roles which I have 100% work from home component. So, for example, you are staying in a tier 3, tier 4 city, then this is your compensation. Had you been staying in tier 1, so those options would be certainly given. Because do remember that most organizations also need to save on costs. And if it is working both for the individual as well as the organization, then why not? So that choice would be there.
Okay. Sarita, any comment?
Yeah, I want to say that what organizations are now looking at, do they add in cost of Wi-Fi to be reimbursed, which was never there earlier, right? So they are also looking at new ways to compensate, not just look at reducing, but maybe increasing a compensation in an area which was never required. I also, at least I know in my organization, we were said that if possible, we will send you the office chair at your home.
Oh my, is it so?
Yes, so I've got my office chair here delivered at my home because
A lot of people did.
Because the ergonomics is important.
Yeah, ergonomic issues became so big. So I think the organizations are looking at different things now. Yeah, which was never there on their plate. HR never had these things to look at when designing salary or variables or whatsoever. But do you compensate for Wi-Fi? Do you give furniture? Do you tell them to buy a certain type of furniture and then reimburse them, or things like that? So those are the new dimensions that really have come in into the place. It's not, and I know a lot of organizations are now going back to old salaries. Yeah, I think months ago I read about a PR agency which had furloughed so many people, but their business grew. Their business grew because communications, that this was the era of communications, right? It became so very important. The business grew for the agency, so they have increased the salary back. Paid them back from past, given them all the areas and all of that. And Phone Pay has given ESOPs now to everybody. A lot of startups are giving ESOPs. So I think and what came up, and I want Ryan and Shivan, they will agree with me, is how important it is to retain valuable employees. I think this message was very, very clear to all of us in the pandemic. And I think companies are doing everything that they can within the boundaries of what can be done to ensure that people do stay with them.
Thank you. So as we sort of enter the home run of this beautiful experience, I just want to raise one question each for each of our panelists from the students, and then hand it over to Aruna. Very, very perceptive questions. Shreya Natu. I'm not going to, it's a long question, but the question she's asking is, doesn't, discussions around flexibility, the work from anywhere, doesn't it depend on the country's GDP, income level, socioeconomic? Probably what she's saying is what is good for Facebook and California is not necessarily the best for India. And I think there's been some conversations, particularly from the Nordic countries, that while adopting disruptive technologies like AI, ML, a country has to develop its own approach towards adopting these technologies, because you don't want social destitution to increase uncontrolled just because of corporate benefits or efficiency. So maybe any one of you can answer this, and there are two more questions for the other two. Whoever wants to take this. This is Shreya Natu. A very good question. Shivan, you want? Yeah, Sarita?
Before my colleagues chip in, is that
it is possible. Sarita, please go on.
The reason we saw the rise of Atmanirbhar Bharat, that's the classic example that the country decided it need to up its own game and come up with its own answers and solutions to supply chain issues or whatever the challenges that COVID threw up. So yes, you have to look internally and you have to find your own answers based on your infrastructure and the resources.
So Shivan, maybe a simpler question. I think another student wonderfully has asked the question. I think because we discussed about more salary, less salary, the perceptive question the student has asked is, isn't flexibility the ultimate perquisite? Your thoughts?
Yes.
Okay.
If you look at flexibility from a just a compensation perspective, or whether you look at from a total rewards perspective. So, for example, uh, career choices, right? So, whether I can take an X role in a
Yeah.
Y country,
Yeah.
right? So, those
Yeah.
when you are asking a larger flexibility, so yes, that would be. Uh, See, at the end of the day, you have an individual, which is an employee, and all the rewards need to revolve around them. Whether it's a learning reward, so whether I can choose any program which I like for my training, or for example, there is plethora of rewards, and I can choose or cater my compensation basis so that the total outcome or outflow to the company remains the same, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
yes, certainly flexibility would be the
Yeah.
ultimate outcome. How do you enable it? What are the trade-offs? Are questions which we need to struggle as HR.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Shivan. And definitely the last question from the students. It's really very satisfying that 119 participants are still logged in. I think when the peak attendance was 134, and that's amazing. And due acknowledgement and thank you to students, faculty, and all guests who have participated in this. So the last question to Ryan is that it's not directly connected to this, but sir, is there a lot of debate on whether AI will take over HR in future? Now, it's an interesting question. The next question, what is your take? That means, what is your take on AI, whether it will take on... Okay, jokes apart. So I can only say my single liner is, electricity is a good servant, but don't make it a bad master. That's my old example, but I'm sure Ryan will give a more dignified and a modern example. Ryan, over to you.
AI is a factor in HR today, as it is in practically every function across the breadth of industry. It is currently a relatively smaller factor, right? It has immense potential going forward. Okay, currently, the what AI can deliver in real terms, right, at reasonable cost is limited. Yeah, it can probably help you to manage things like the leave system and stuff like that. You know, where people ask questions, get responses. Currently, are there products available which can handle more crucial HR functions, including say compensation design or coaching or performance concern management? I think AI is nowhere close to that right now. You know, the primary benefit of AI, I'm sure the students will know far better than me, is that wherever there is mass of information which needs to be processed and answers need to be obtained, AI is best, right? Because it's say like, you know, why AI is used for in legal briefs, right? AI can look at thousands and tens of thousands of legal briefs and can obtain the appropriate ones. No single lawyer would be able to do that. Yeah. But so known problems where data is extensively available already, AI can help you to generate solutions from that. But unknown problems, right? And HR, for better or worse, because it deals with people, and people are so unique and so unpredictable. There are many unknown problems which come up, which are very specific to the individual and the context, right? So in the immediate future, I do not see the AI taking over some of the more crucial value additions that HR is expected to make today. But certainly there is a good way to go on a lot of HR operational matters, leveraging AI. I would certainly advise all students to investigate it, even if they want to get into HR. It is going to be a part of a significant part of HR work for the next few decades.
Okay. So before I hand back to Dr. Aruna Deshpande, I want to, from my personal self, thank Ryan, Shivan, and Sarita. You've been so kind on a Saturday afternoon. You have raised the level of the discussions. Everybody in this session has learned something or the other, and that includes me also. I'm really grateful to you. I just want to share with those who are logged in that if you submit your feedback, which is just a 5-question feedback, you are likely to get an attractive participation certificate. But the window for submitting the Google survey back will close 10 minutes after the function is closed. I can only offer to Aruna ma'am, I'm so excited by this event and this potential association. I request, I'm sure Ryan, Shivan, Sarita, and all my colleagues in NHRDN, maybe we can take this into some sort of a researching sort of an area. Maybe students can write a paper based on this conference. We are willing and happy to support all that. And we would like that this is the first of many other meaningful events where we can come and partner you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Aruna ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Professor Vijayan. The discussion was really, really very, very enlightening. All the experiential professionals like Sarita Madam, Ryan, Shivin, your experiences, you're lying to the corporate life. We as academicians and the students who will be the future, maybe the corporate people, for them. And because of this impact of COVID, it's really, I mean, for us academicians, we have to change our theories in such a way that the application post COVID should be what? So, that is our research also. Because we never encountered such a gap or such a break in the full flow of our academic teaching. And you as corporates also have experienced the same. And what is going to be the workforce requirement from future? So as academicians, it's our responsibility, to actually groom the students in such a way that this is a very, they become a very useful workforce in the future, to take the organizational and the businesses ahead, whichever work or whichever job they do. Uh, Post COVID, it is actually like we are grappling with technology. We are actually coming to terms with the changing styles of working. We are working, now our university has said that we have to start, full-time working. Plus, we are planning to call students back to classrooms with 50%. But still, we are very apprehensive. So, so this type of, especially the mindset that we all are going through. I really liked, Sarita ma'am saying that the psychological impact on the human factor which has affected because of this pandemic. And all of them, and especially the students, we'll have to wait and watch how they actually cope up after post-COVID. Now I take this opportunity to thank all of you. And it was a great opportunity to interact with you all and with NHRDN. Professor Vijayan, you have taken the initiative and made this event a great success. Thank you, sir. I hand over to Dr. Naina Sarve. She is our faculty in our institute to give the vote of thanks. Thank you. Naina, you're on mute. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
On a lighter note, the sentence of the year is "You are on mute." It has been there in every single meeting that I have attended for this entire year, few times. So
Yes, Naina, you can. See, this is technology. I had a gathering time initially to start with the natural anthem. So I think these are the technology flaws which we all have to cope up.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah. Am I audible? Not audible? That is the statements, which we are hearing completely for 1 year. For the students also, and that's online session is, apart from this, I will really take this opportunity to give the vote of thanks on behalf of Alkesh Dinesh Modi Institute and NHRD. I will just, highlight some of the few points which we all the eminent panelists has discussed, and we have taken I think that everybody has taken the most of what do you mean by, what is the current scenario of work from home, and what is the basically future of what we are dealing with the work from home. Basically, initially we talked about, how it's basically a choice. Now we have to adopt it. It cannot be given as a choice. Then we talked about, adopting the work from home, what is the problem, and adopting, those who are the organizations who are already were aware about the policies for work from home. It was not much more difficult for them, but for those organizations who will implement it for the first time, it is definitely a, huge task to build up all the policies and adopting this WFH policies. And that Sarita ma'am has also said that we talked about, flexible working policy that has to go all way around. The changes need to be made. Shivan sir also talked about how important is the role task, and how the activity of that particular role is dependent, that a physical presence is needed in an organization or not. Then he talked also about the data securities. Second, we talked about technological shift. Like Shivan sir also talked about, how Maslow's hierarchy has actually changed up by that, and sensitization around how we are meeting around performance and many other things. And another important thing which Sarita ma'am also talked about is the mental well-being, which is at most really important in nowadays, not only for the employees but also for the students perspective. The introvert thing, the introverts are that kind of personality, most probably they don't speak out. So जिसको networking करना बहुत पसंद है, उसको isolation में रखेंगे तो definitely we cannot do out what the performance is needed from the particular employee. So that is actually also impacting, and we all are aware how the kids are running around into the home. And another thing, one important thing, that sexual harassment, which is actually an most important thing, where a research can actually be carried out on online appropriate dressing, sitting at home. So these are the some of the new policies which basically HR has to be designed, which we were, as an HR, as a professional, I was also not aware that is this is also come up into the picture. And then we have got about the new posh policies also have to be taken care of it. And if we talked about the technologies also, how the technology is utmost helping out into the HR. Vijayan sir also gave up how Mahindra is actually helping out for the country's growth. Ryan sir also talked about strategic decision, how as an HR can help into our strategic decision. And at most exactly, how we as an employees are so much comfortable when we are into the office, like we require कि हम लोग को खाना एक साथ खाना है, we can actually chit chat. Some of the informal communication is at most needed for us to survive, because at home, at that isolation, it's kind of very difficult. We cannot share those feelings, or we cannot tell something about ki everything on phone, or the other party are also not able to hear that kind of things, because body language is at most important. And we talked about cognitive time of performance. Yes, at most is needed. Another thing we talked about is at most important, that is the gig economy. I think students and other people should take about it, that gig economy, how it is actually impacting the many countries. You have many examples in Uber and Ola. There is no infrastructure is specifically needed and people can work. Another thing we talked about is about the hybrid workforce, that one of the panelists said that 2-3 days office is required and other we can work from home. That 2-3 days wala office thing is really at most needed, because physical interaction to be at the office, like Sarita ma'am also told, like I have taken my office chair, the ergonomics at home. That is also one of the research area. Ergonomics, when we are at the office, the setup is completely defined, and when we are at home, everything is scattered out. We don't know when the kid will pick up a ball and throw football in front of our laptop, or some other things can happen. So these are the other things, in work from home has to be adopted. And at most, and we talked about is about AI, how artificial intelligence is gonna impact our human resources. That thing, the question is at most needed, that AI and analytics is the need of the hour. So I really thankful to have a fruitful, we have touched majority of the aspects which is the need of the hour, and we talked about it, and we can, with the help of definitely the panelists and NHRD and ADMI, can take forward the research thing, particularly related to many other domains of work from home, and we'll look out for the collaboration further on. So thank you everyone for giving your inputs. Thank you.
Thank you, Nena. That was really a very reflective vote of thanks. Before we all close for this event, I want all the participants to put on their videos so that we can take a screenshot for this event. Please put on your videos. Yes, all of you all. I'll be taking the screenshot. There are about 6 slides, 6 windows. So one by one, I'll shift the window and take the screenshot. So this first window is ready. Shreya, please come. Yes. Thank you. We'll do the next window. All of you all, please put on your videos. Please put on your videos. I think most of them are having network issues. So it's difficult for them to have their videos on. Okay, thank you. We close for the day. The event was very nice. Vijay sir, we will be sharing the certificate, printing in collaboration with NHRDN and Alkesh Modi. It will take a few days, so don't be in a hurry. Do not email us. We will be emailing you. We have your details in the feedback form field. We will send you the certificates. Thank you very much. Thank you all of you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.